Welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 91. We're just a click away. Recorded on Friday, April 24th, 2020. From Zenatta Consulting, I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the news.
First story up today is going to be working remote using Orchestly. And I think we say the same thing every single time we talk about this application, which is we haven't really played with it all that much yet, but it sure does look pretty neat. And someday we're going to have to dive in. And this appears to be a similar situation. So basically, Zoho put out how they're using Orchestly to get a bunch of work done and to manage various projects. And so they really put out a whole bunch of different blueprints. And some of the questions that were asked here on this link we're going to show you is, hey, how can we get these templates? Because they don't really exist in Orchestly right now, but pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I mean, for those who haven't played around a lot with Orchestly, it's basically a system where you can blueprint out different processes where you need, approval or collaboration on a given project, right? So it could be anything from getting the right set of approvals to purchase some new laptops, to getting the proper stamps of approval on a sales proposal that you want to send out. So you basically automate the notifications and approval processes amongst all of your different team members, right? And so now, with a lot of people not being able to walk down the hall and get approval in someone's office, I could definitely see this being something that a lot of people could benefit from using, right? Because you can blueprint out what that whole process looks like inside the office, right? And transition it to a remote workflow.
Yeah. And anyway, this is just really well laid out. And it just kind of shows, I guess, the overall power of Orchestly. Once you start diving into it, it will be nice. It looks like they are going to maybe publish some of the inputs to that dashboard. So that'll be interesting to see. So I don't know. Do we just keep saying we're going to have to take a look at it someday, or do you think we're actually going to take a look at it here?
Well, it's been out for a little while now, so I think it's about time. Probably some of those initial launch kinks are worked out, where it's probably worth giving that deep dive.
I think so. Hey, and then Zoho Show now has a dedicated app for Chromebook. And this is kind of interesting in that I've never understood these Chromebook apps. If you've owned a Chromebook in the past, you can actually download the applications. And I think it's their way of trying to say, hey, look, it's just like a Mac or a PC. And you can have these little app icons that are sitting on your desktop and you can click on them. But really all you're doing is launching a browser and launching the application in a browser. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of similar, the same thing. And it, automatically enables the offline mode when you're offline. And it does give you that kind of, hey, you're in an app rather than in a browser tab. And I love Chromebooks. That used to be my daily driver, was a Chromebook, until I went back to a MacBook Pro. But I don't know. Anyway, I gotta believe that this is the start of basically maybe Zoho starting to port all their apps into dedicated Chromebook applications.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of a minor little quality of life improvement. I know personally, I'm always one to download applications, right? So for me, for using Gmail, I've got a little desktop app for that. And for using Zoho Cliq, I've got a desktop app. So for me, if I was on a Chromebook, this is probably what I would be using for Zoho Show, just because I like the feel of pulling something up from my little, command bar. But yeah, minor improvement there. And definitely it's going to be something where they're basically just dropping the browser version into a app, right? Where it's not going to be a separate thing. It's going to, I would assume, look very, very similar to the
it is. So the way it works in Chrome when you're in a Chromebook is when you run the dedicated apps, they actually show up as apps in their own little window, and you can resize them and move them around and have 3 or 4 of them on your screen. Whereas if you were just using the browser mode, which is what a Chromebook is, then you just have all your open tabs and you're switching from tab to tab to tab. So it's really just giving you a different visual dynamic as to how you're going to access it. But it is exactly the same application running in its own little dedicated browser window without all of the little browser tabs and functionality that you would normally see. That's all the Chromebook apps are, but pretty nice. And I think there's a lot of people that like that look and feel. Maybe it makes it more productive. They switch back, I guess, switching between like that is better for some people than switching from tabs. I've never understood the difference, quite frankly. It's always seems the same to me. All righty. And then we've got the Zoho client portal update, which is pretty interesting here. So I don't know if you had a chance to go ahead and take a look at this or not, but they've been continuing with this client portal inside of Zoho Recruit. And you've often had the applicant portal, and now you've got the client portal. This was recently rolled out, and they've just been making some little updates to it as they go along. So just some small improvements here.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because they've got all of these portal tools kind of rolled out separately across all the different applications. It's interesting that this is looking at the client perspective. So you're sharing you're sharing your candidate information, right? So people that you're in the process of recruiting or might be hiring with clients in your database. Right. So maybe this would be used for someone who is doing some outsourced recruiting or things like that.
Yeah, this is exactly for that. This is for someone who basically is saying, hey, look, we're a recruiter and we have various clients and we're using it in the agency model, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Similar how they've set up, you can have Zoho Social, and you can have the agency model for Zoho Social where you're managing the social media for dozens of companies inside there. This is a similar thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, Zoho Recruit is a really nice app. I mean, I'm probably partial to it because it's so similar to Zoho CRM. I mean, almost part and parcel, same UI, same functionality, kind of moving people through a pipeline, just like in the CRM. It's definitely a nice application. If anyone out there is looking for an ATS, applicant tracking system, this is one that I place pretty high on the rankings.
Yeah, it's not bad. And you made an interesting point there that gets me thinking, which is there are all of these individual little portals. Can have a portal in the CRM. It's not so great, but you've got that. But then, in Zoho Books, you have a portal where people can kind of come in and they can take a look at their invoices and they can pay invoices and subscriptions. You have a portal. It would be interesting to have a central portal, right? Where a person would have the one kind of come in and they could then go, do I want to look at projects? Do I want to look at invoices? Do I want to look at these kind of things? Because I think that would be a real interesting, it would certainly make life a lot easier rather than having all these little different logins across all the various Zoho portals, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if you think about, this Zoho Recruit portal, right? If you are doing, outsourced recruiting, you might be sending invoices to those same clients, right? Or kind of, doing things that would involve Zoho Books with those clients. So giving them one consolidated login rather than saying, here's a login to see the candidates we've got in the pipeline, and then here's a separate login to see any outstanding invoices. It would be nice to see them start consolidating some of those portal functionalities.
Yeah, I will give a plug out though to our friend John Mark over at Catalyst Connect, because he actually has a portal that pulls in a whole bunch of different modules and different Zoho applications and does a really good job of consolidating all that right now. So if you're looking for something like that for your clients, that's available, and it does a nice job. All righty, what's new in the Zoho marketplace for projects? So everybody else kind of got their stuff out there a little while ago, and then the projects team, I guess, was kind of, here's what happened in March. And so it's a little late getting out the March updates, but I don't know if we covered all of these or not. I don't think so, because as I kind of went through, I remember we covered Sugar CRM for a few things, but I don't think it was for projects. I want to say it was for campaigns was the big one. And so basically, this is a continuation of Zoho building just a ton of extensions. Most of these are built by Zoho. They're targeting certain applications and then kind of running through this list. So Sugar, Insightly, HubSpot, Toggle, OneDrive. These are, it's interesting to see this. And they seem to be going in chunks like this. So they take an application, they've got some clear applications that they want to write the integration for, and then they just, they go ahead and do it.
Yeah, this one, they've got a couple new CRMs in the mix, right? They've got a couple apps that are targeted at time tracking, right? With Toggle and Harvest. Harvest is like a project management suite, but it really is focused on tracking time on those projects as well. The one on here that stands out to me the most is the Zoho Expense integration kind of nested there at the bottom of the page. And that's one that I would imagine a lot of people are using. I mean, this is one that I think we may have talked about already.
We did actually,
But being
covered it
able
a
to
few weeks
log
ago.
specific project-related expenses just directly into the finance suite is really nice, especially for those who may be using the invoicing functionality out of projects as is, right? Kind of bringing all of your financial management related to projects under one umbrella is a pretty nice little bit of functionality.
Yeah, not bad. Marketplace continues to grow. You know, it used to be we had to search for that, but not so much anymore. Tyler, it's time for some Zoho Analytics updates. So we talked about this kind of before the show. Some nice stuff here, some very useful things, you think?
Yeah, I think so. And we've had the past couple batches of analytics updates have been kind of minor, little, UI updates here around sharing or, little tweaks. We've got some more significant ones this time around. So top of page here, we have a new functionality to add trend lines, right? So let's say you had a like line chart or some type of chart around your revenue month over month, right? So now you can actually go ahead and add a trend line to that, that revenue, which is nice because oftentimes if you are seeing a lot of variability month over month, being able to quickly see the overarching trend is super valuable on any type of chart where you're looking at things over time. They've also expanded a little bit of what they can do with pivot views. So now you're able to expand and collapse different pivot view sections, right? So the example they give here is, if you're recording or reporting on revenue for certain product types every quarter, right? You could expand the specific quarters and see that revenue, or maybe expand a specific product type and see the products in that type, right? Just kind of gives you the ability to hide and show different sections of those pivot tables, which, if you're building out a pretty large pivot, being able to do that is really, really nice for the usability. And just the ability to kind of see only the data that you need. And then the last little one here is a new functionality around lookups. So lookups in analytics are basically being able to say, match records from two different tables based on some type of unique value in those tables. And they've added the ability now to add date columns as a lookup field. Now, this one's not one that I see a ton of use for. I could see it where maybe if you want to have some type of target table, right, where maybe you have sales targets for every day, right, and you want to link specific deals based on their closing date to those targets, right, and maybe you want to say, here's our targets for April 7th, for April 8th, April 9th, right, but it is kind of an interesting one because when you get into, especially if you get into like a date time field, it's not super common that those are going to be exactly the same in two different tables. But it does seem like, based on the comments on this, there are definitely a handful of people looking for those date lookups. So it's got to be some functionality that maybe I'm just not seeing off the top of my head here around those. But the more the merrier. Being able to link tables together using any type of value that you want is always nice to have.
Yeah, it's nice. I don't understand. One of the things that on the groupings, and this is across a lot of, especially inside the CRM as well, is when you're doing the date time, the time is always different, right? Maybe off by just a few seconds or something like that. It's all up. And you basically just want to group by just the specific day. And I imagine it's going to let you go just not by the created time, but just on the actual date. Should be to let you sort by that, yeah?
I would imagine that you might have to make a little formula field right in there and parse out only the date piece of the date time and then use that.
It seems unnecessary. One of the just base things I'd love to see on the RM, and I haven't asked for this in a couple of years, so I'll ask for it again, is when you're just doing general reporting inside the CRM, you don't need analytics, but just give us the ability to say, show me this quarter, show me, you know what I'm saying? Without having to break it down that way, show me what I did, and run a report where you break it down by weeks in a month, those kind of really simple breakdowns. I mean, the only way that now is you kind of have to go or maybe make some formula and go ahead and pull out a date, and you can write to a field and say this was, February 2020, and then you can sort every, there's just a whole bunch of different things you have to do. I mean, if you really kind of break down a lot of these reportings, but it's just otherwise you can just do it by date, which is just really messy because things don't really close that way. So
Yeah,
I'm
it
just
seems like
talking,
they've
I'm
been,
talking, I'm talking in groupings in the reports, right?
yeah, just inside
Specifically
the
in groupings.
CRM.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, moving on. So we've got some news. Why a lot of these were going to be things we discussed on our things we noticed, but Zoho was super nice this time, and they actually said, "Guess what? You may have noticed these things, and in fact, we have gone ahead and made some changes. And these are just really nice little tweaks that we've actually talked about. I mean, the description field now being a little wider, that was real problematic for a while there. As a matter of fact, for a while, it was just a run-on. But when they did fix it, it was a little too narrow. So now they've kind of increased the size of the column for description. A lot around notes, and then just a couple other cosmetic changes that are pretty nice as well, kind of visually.
Yeah, they've been hitting it hard with the new UI. I mean, even just right out the gate, it was already, at least in my opinion, a pretty significant improvement over the previous CRM UI. And cool to see them, I think, taking a lot of feedback from people and quickly turning it around and implementing it, right? Now they have better color coding for closed and won statuses on your deal pipeline bar. They're improving the way that the blueprint buttons look, so you can more quickly see kind of where you're at in a blueprint, how far along you've progressed. Right, so it's a lot of these incremental improvements. We're still waiting on that canvas mode, but I think, like we've mentioned before, that this may have been step one for them kind of redesigning things and getting ready for a fully customizable UI inside of your record views.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, nice little changes across the board. Kind of happy to see that as well. All right, and then we've got bulk shifts in Zoho Workerly. An application we have never deployed, but this is if you have 1099 hourly employees and you want them to be able to manage all the billing and pay and all that, you basically, Workerly is for you. And this is allowing you actually to select a whole bunch of people and schedule them all at once. I wish we have a client who had a need for this, or maybe we just need to play around with it on our own. Add this to the Orchestly pile there, Tyler.
Yeah, the bucket of applications that we've just never had that need to touch. But this is nice, though. I mean, if you've got a lot of 1099s, right, going in, putting the same shift on, 10, 15, 20 different people that's gonna get old after a while. So this is definitely a much needed improvement to be able to do that in mass.
Yeah. Nice. They continue to improve that. And then we had a few talked about Zoho Recruit a little earlier, but they've also had some few features added to it. Mostly they've got an Outlook add-in and some changes to layout rules. So again, Zoho Recruit, no one's sleeping there.
You're working away. I mean, again, it's sort of like point for point with the CRM on any type of functionality you see roll out in the CRM. It's got to be the same team, because then those same functionalities go right over there into Zoho Recruit.
Well, it's the same app. If you've played in Zoho Recruit, it's basically just the version of the CRM that's been completely customized as an applicant tracking system, and a very good one at that. And anyway, just nice stuff. So I imagine you're right. A lot of this just rolls over once something's done on the CRM. Since it's on the same platform, it kind of easily comes right on over. All right, let's move on to our mobile app news. Normally, I think most weeks lately, we've been skipping this overall screen, but we are not this week. So kind of flipping through both my Android devices and my iPhone, and there were these three that really jumped out at me. Zoho Projects has now added the ability to annotate images and add them as attachments inside a project. So if you're working on something remotely, I can see it in a project. Maybe you're taking a picture of something, you can annotate it and just attach it directly to the project. Pretty nice, it's a small little thing, but I think really helpful if you're in projects. Zoho Expense, just an entire long list. If you're an iPad user, go in and just read everything about that they did on that update. But they expanded the sidebar, a whole bunch of new functions, a new quick create button. And you can actually, this is interesting, view rejection reasons on status hover. I don't know how you hover on an iPad. I'm thinking though, this has to do with the new iPad Pros and the keyboard and the mouse pad. You actually can start to do hovers now, and there are a lot of new functionality that's been added into if you're using a mouse or a touchpad with your iPad, you actually get some of these hovers. So I'm kind of thinking that's what that is as well. And then Zoho Cliq. Now this is one we use all the time, and I did know nice new home screen, new contextual chat actions with that mention, a whole lot more in the Zoho Cliq app. So this was a big week. Normally when I go through and I look at this, it's just, we squished some bugs. That was it. You know, minor improvements and bug fixes, minor improvements and bug fixes. This week, that wasn't the case, but these are kind of the big three that jumped out at me.
And definitely nice to always see those updates to Cliq, man. We live inside of Cliq every day of the week.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. All right. So Tyler, what do we have for the implementation of the week?
Yeah, so this implementation was a pretty quick one here. That's just a quality of life improvement for the CRM. And it's all kind of centered around your deals or potentials or opportunities. So inside of your deals, you can link multiple deal or multiple contacts to the deal using the contact roles related list. And it's a pretty nice little function, right? So you could define different stakeholders or different people that have, you know, some part to play in that sale. One of the little oddities with it is that, you know, additionally inside of a deal, you have a lookup field, which goes directly to one contact, right? So oftentimes that's going to be the primary contact that you're going to be coordinating with on that deal. But when you would link someone in that primary contact field, they would get added to contact roles, but with no role, right? So there's no way to set like a default role that the person that goes in that field is the primary contact. And so what we did is basically write a quick script where when you link that person to that lookup field inside of the deal, it'll actually read the contact roles, find the matching contact, and then define their role as a primary contact. Right, and so you could actually do this for a variety of different use cases. So let's say you had two different lookups, right, inside of a deal, and one was going to, you know, the primary customer, and maybe one was going to their spouse, right? And as you filled each of those lookups, we could actually write into the related list and define one as the primary and one as the spouse. Right, so there's a lot of different little use cases where basically you can link someone via lookup in a deal, and then define their contact role accordingly, just directly through a script. It's definitely something that's just a quality of life improvement. Of course, you could just link someone and go to the contact roles and edit them and then define the role there. But it's really easy to forget to do that. And if you have any specific workflows, right, where maybe you have someone who is going to hop into a deal and send out a confirmation email to a specific role in that contact roles, right? If anyone's forgotten to define them, right, well, now all of a sudden you are causing that person to have to email you or get in touch with you and say, okay, who am I emailing today? Right, so there's a lot of different minor use cases where just defining these roles via script is gonna help you out.
So are you matching the pick list inside the contact to that contact role pick list? Are those mirrored?
Well, so it's not even really based on a pick list in the contact, right? So let's say that we had two different contact roles, right, for primary and secondary.
Sure.
And then two different lookups for primary and secondary. Basically, the way it would work is when you fill that primary contact lookup, it finds that contact in the roles and defines them as the primary, just right inside of the actual contact roles pick list.
Right.
So you don't even have to really do anything in the contact itself. You can manage the whole thing just in the deal, and based on where you look someone up, it will define the role for you.
This is interesting. I wondered, so could you extend this? Could we go look at the contact? So when you're adding a contact into the new contact inside a deal, could we go back and look to the contact and maybe look to a field and then automatically define the role there?
Yeah, yeah, you could do that. You could basically query the whole contact record and then
Because this
set some
becomes a,
logic.
I mean, I love how every week we've got a new implementation of the week, which is really driven by customers are asking for certain things or they'd like something made a little simpler. And it's just amazing. We never run out of these. It's always something new. But, we have so many real estate clients and,
Yep.
this is where contact roles usually become big, is on the real estate side of things, where people are saying, hey, this is the buyer, this is the seller, this is this is the property owner, this is the primary agent, these are the other agents, here's the listing agent, here's the selling agent, here's the appraiser, here's the escrow officer. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And most of these people are actually already in the CRM and they are defined in some way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
But every time you kind of add them into the deal, as it were, or the usually renamed transaction in case real estate, they're having to define these. So it's a pretty interesting script. We may be deploying this more places than not, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice, 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 nice. And our reads of the week, I love this article. This is a HubSpot article. It's by Pamela Bump. And I guess I love it so much because it justifies the way that I have worked and successfully worked remotely or work from home for decades now. And it's how to create a remote work schedule that works for you. And it's really about blocking time off and how that can work. And, if you go through the article, and this is a 10-minute read, but it really talks about if you're going to work from home successfully, you need to treat it a little differently than at work, because you're not at work from 9 to 5 and you're there doing it. It's going to be a whole different schedule for you, but you still need to block things off, because when you are at an office, if you were, you go to lunch because everybody goes to lunch, and you take breaks because everybody takes breaks. But when you're home, you don't necessarily do that. You can just kind of sit there, and I think, Tyler, we talk about this a lot. If you don't block lunch on your schedule, there is no lunch potentially. People will book, and especially the way we set things up, which allow people to actually just book meetings with us if it's open on our schedule. So if you don't block off certain times to take care of basic things, including getting certain work done, such as responding to emails, doing various dev, I find it to be highly effective. And a lot of people don't do this. If you have a very nice, very consistent, precise schedule where you block off your day and you block off the various things you're going to do. And this is, it's well done. I think she covers all the bases here.
Yeah, it's all about calendaring. I mean, calendaring is what makes the world go around, right? So basically, her big point here is that anything that you're doing regularly, make it a regular event so that you always have that time blocked off. If you need to catch up on a big project, don't just do it, but block it on calendar so your team knows that you're doing that right now, right? And then, of course, blocking off time for your life, like for lunch and for little breaks that you need to take to keep yourself sane, right, throughout the day. One of the big things too is just about clocking out right at the end of the day. That's one of the things that I think can be the most difficult with working from home, is that you have that blurred line where, when you're going into an office every day, it's easier because when you're in the office, it's work mode. And when you're not in work mode, right? But all of a sudden you don't have that delineation when you're working from home. So it becomes really important to make sure that you have your schedule still as consistent and normal as you can.
Yeah, I mean, and as my schedule personally, I go down to I'm up at like 5 every morning. So it's basically, hey, do email, go through the finances, look at the schedule, plan the day. And then I've got some personal things that I take care of in the morning. And I block off my workout because I want to make sure I get it done. If I don't block out the time, I'm not going to. And then, certain chunks of work during the week. I mean, if you've got big projects, they need to be on your calendar and blocked off. They've got to get done. We've got a webinar coming up. There's a huge chunk of blocking out that. Preparing for this show, I block off, a couple hours at the end of Thursday so we can pull all of the various things that need to be done for that. And I think just by this, you'll find that you'll be way more productive at the end of the day and really get some stuff done. I also thought this was interesting. In searching for this, sometimes we find little graphics that I like to just drop into the slide deck that we're talking about. And this one was actually well before anything came out, but it was from buffer.com. They published a survey called State of Remote 2019, and they talked about the biggest struggle working remotely. And they kind of went through all of this, but it was, unplugging after work. And I think that's 22% were unplugging after work. And then, you kind of went down loneliness, collaborating, communication, 10% distractions at home. I honestly think that number one, if you schedule yourself so that you're off and your work's done, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to unplug after work. I can't help with loneliness, but maybe Zoom helps with that now, Tyler. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because for the loneliness and the collaboration, as more and more tools come out that can connect you with people, so quickly and easy, it'll be interesting to see if that becomes less of a problem over time. The state of remote in 2025, if there's a totally different set of challenges, right?
Yeah.
As technology can bring us a little closer together.
Well, and I think, that whole face-to-face, I mean, Cliq cures loneliness, I think, oftentimes, because you're seeing if you want a real face-to-face instant communication, you're going to talk to somebody. I mean, we as Cliq, we're not just doing audio calls, it's always face-to-face. And we have the team calls, and really it's one click away. I mean, because you can do these group calls now. You can have a group set up with 3 or 4 of us, and you just click it, and all of a sudden all 4 of us are talking to each other. So I don't know. I think I find it interesting that this in 2019 loneliness was the biggest problem, because man, with all the tools that are out there and the ability to actually look at someone and talk and laugh and do all that kind of. I know it's not the same as being there face to face, but it's pretty close, I think.
And getting closer every day.
Yep. And then in Zenatta blogs, we did an entire thing on Zoho Meeting. So this is interesting because last week our app of the week was Zoom, and all we did was rave about Zoom and how much we love it. And we're actually recording this show on Zoom. But if you are a Zoho One user and you are looking to, save some money, Zoho Meeting is getting better and better and better. I still think it's a little sparse in a lot of its little features. But, if you look out on a side-by-side comparison, it's a fairly good alternative out there. I think the big thing for us is that it doesn't really integrate with any of the best in class calendaring apps that are out there. And, such as Calendly and Acuity scheduling and those kind of things. And so since it doesn't have any of that integration, it makes it difficult really for us to use it on a daily basis. And we have had just a few issues, I think, with some audio quality issues and some video quality issues, but, it's getting better and better. And, this is one of those things, we've got our little 3 buckets of, great, good, and not quite ready for prime time when it comes to Zoho apps. This one's always been in that good category. I think it moved from not ready to prime time to good in the last year. And it's getting there. And one of the interesting things about this COVID crisis is it seems to have forced them to spend a lot more time working on this product.
Yeah, so we've seen kind of continuous improvement and updates to it, especially over the past month, like you're saying there. And, once it has those calendar integrations and, kind of shores up a little bit about the audio and video quality, other than those, a lot of the other features that it might not have compared to a Zoom aren't things that you're using every single day, right? So it might be worth making that changeover, but there's just a couple of those last little kinks to work out on Zoho Meeting.
Yeah, I think it gets there. We keep playing with it, and there are a lot of meetings that we're doing on it, so it's not like we're abandoning it. I'm looking forward to seeing those improvements. Hey, over on Zenatta.com, we have got a whole bunch of our continuing content palooza. So we've got our YouTube videos, our YouTube channel's growing. Every week we produce new content for it. Sometimes it's just things we do on this show. They're broken out as separate little things. The 2 videos that went up this week are actually from this. We talked about our implementation of the week was automating event creation with Zoho CRM deals with email invites to all related contacts. And then we did a Zoho CRM Automation 101, which was workflows, which was really popular, one of the most popular little things we did. And that actually was part of the show. It was the last thing we did, but we broke it out as a separate video, so you can just watch that there as well. And then we always in that search for new resource guides that we can find out there. So email plus Zoho CRM for your business, and getting started with Zoho Connect. These are super nice. You know, if you haven't played around with all of the resources, we are, you know, continually scouring the web, looking for really good content out there, and kind of presenting it in a nice way so you can kind of go through and, you know, easily with these how-to guides, find the information you're looking for. I mean, this one on Connect, if you're watching our video, you know, this is a step-by-step guide on getting started with Zoho Connect. Really, really good stuff. And I think we've laid it out in a really nice way. So kind of hope you enjoy these resource guides. We're spending a lot of time finding them and putting them hopefully in a format that's very, very usable for you too. And they're all downloadable content as well.
Yeah, I mean, Zoho has actually a decent amount of content around all these different apps, but sometimes it's just so spread all over the place. Hoping to make it a little bit easier to find, right, by bringing it all under one big umbrella there in our resource library.
Yeah, good stuff. And Zoho's, yeah, they produced amazing things, but they're just kind of hard to find. I mean, this is probably a 3-year-old PDF that was just buried, you know, at the bottom of the internet somewhere, and we dug it out and, you know, trying to make it easy for people to find these things. All right, so our application of the week. I love this app, Tyler.
I know you do. You've been ranting about it all week. I should say raving, not ranting. You've been raving about it all week.
So this is a plugin for Gmail called Sorted, SORTD, period. And they got a cute little squirrel, because I guess he's squirreling things away. They've got a personal edition that starts at $6 per user per month. They've got a team edition that starts at $8. What this does is, and I'm going to play I've got a little video that I'm just going to run for our video users, and, you know, we can kind of talk through this, Tyler, but it's a real interesting application. So it overlays your Gmail, and you've got a little side button when you're in Gmail, and it basically turns all of your email into Kanban boards. And you can have as many different of these Kanban boards as you want. So, you know, they're showing one on this video, which is kind of a sales board, which has got to-dos and launch events, deals, and follow-ups. But, you know, you can, so anytime you've got an email and you're like, well, I need to get to that tomorrow, or I need to follow up on that, you can just go ahead and drag that into one of your Kanban boards, if you will, into one of your columns, and go ahead and follow it up. You can rearrange your columns. You can also, this is kind of a to-do list, so you can just easily just go ahead and type a note and, you know, move that around in one of your certain things. So basically make yourself a task. They also have a team edition of this, which means you can have a board that can be seen by other team members. So rather than forwarding an email, replying all to an email, doing all of those kind of things, you can just create a column, say, you know, Tyler Brett discussions, you know, emails for us to discuss, or just emails for Tyler that maybe were sent to me. You just kind of drag them over there, and you can kind of see if they were checked off and done. It's just a really, really nice interface. And in a lot of ways, much better, quite frankly, than standard Gmail. On the other hand, it's missing a lot of functionality, but it's so easy to toggle back and forth, because it really does take over Gmail when you're using it. I mean, it's a whole completely different interface, but I'm in love with it. Almost all my emails are actionable emails. They're things that I need to do something on, and I hate having a cluttered inbox. So for the ability to move these to, hey, it's in the queue, I want to do this today. This is something I want to read later. This is a personal email maybe that I want to address. You know, this has to do with X, Y, or Z. I think I've got 6 or 7 columns. It's just been great. And I think we're going to deploy the team edition and try it out. You know, we go back and forth because there's a lot here that's also maybe in Zoho Mail, not quite as elegant though. But anyway, I don't know. You haven't played with this, but I love this app.
Yeah, I mean, anything to organize the inbox, right? I think that's one of the most commonly challenging things for anyone who is, you know, sends and receives a lot of emails, right? It's easy to get kind of lost in the list. Right. So anything to do to get it out of a list and into something a little bit more useful.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, you know, I had a client, we do the 1-hour free consultations, and sometimes they're just that. That's all they are. People just want, and we just give them an hour and kind of step them through some things. And there's just a few basic things that he needed help with is, authenticating his domain. But he was like, man, I've got these emails sitting over here. I've got tasks and projects, and I've got tasks in CRM, and I've got tasks in email. I wish there was a place where I could see them all. And I said, well, there is, and it's called Connect. And we kind of went through that. And Connect is real close to this, but it doesn't really pull them into that consolidated board. They're still kind of on separate boards, and they're still a little bit separate, but it's getting a little bit closer. And I do have, I have a lot of high hopes for Connect. I know that we use it extensively internally for a lot of our projects and task management and those kind of things, because you can easily share things. We built that little connector for Cliq, but it seems to me that's kind of like the holy grail with all of the Zoho applications, is kind of this unified task management.
Mm-hmm. The one advantage to something like Sorted, though, is that if you have a task from your email, using Sorted, if you drag it into your to-do list, you can still actually email back around that task, right? So that's kind of a nice little thing to keep it in the world of email. So you're still able to communicate externally about that.
Yeah, it's also nice too, because if you drag it in there on the team, anyone on the team can click on it, and then there's an entire notes panel that shows up over on the right-hand side. So, you could drag it into the team. And by the way, you retitle these things. So you don't, maybe the subject line's a mess. So you could retitle it, hey guys, I need your thoughts on this. What do you think we should do? And it's just sitting there in the board as an email. You click on it, you read it, and you can write all the notes on the side. So the person who's going to respond to it has all of those notes as to what everybody on the team thinks should be the response to this particular email. Anyway, powerful tool. If you're using Gmail, you should give it a try. I think you will like it. All righty. Tips and tricks. So this one, Tyler, is just kind of a basic thing. I think we do this all the time. This is a follow-up to last week. So it's CRM Automation 101, and this is task dependencies. And this is how to launch a new task only after other tasks reach a certain status. Tyler, I don't know. What percentage of implementations do you think we kind of end up doing something similar to this inside the CRM? It's a good number, I think.
Yeah, I'd say probably like around half, maybe a little less than half, but right in that ballpark. And basically what this could be is might have a use case where once a deal hits, contract signed, right, as a certain stage, maybe that fires off task number 1, right? And once task 1 is completed, right, then task 2 should appear, right? Because that's the next thing on the list that we need to do. And the way that Zoho structures these workflows to create tasks is actually great. So that if you have a task creating another task via workflow, it'll actually link it to that same deal or account or contact. So it keeps everything in line for you and works just fantastically.
Yeah, super, super straightforward. So I'm actually, for those of us watching on the video here, you're going to see I'm going to do a little demo of this, and this will be done as a breakout demo as well. So last week, we talked about creating a workflow so that when a deal reached this fictional research stage, that we would then go ahead and automatically create an activity that said, notify the research team. So I'm just going to go pretty much and pig straight off of that. So again, you're going to go into your overall workflow rules, which is under setup inside the CRM, and you're just going to create a rule. And in this case, I'm going to create a rule for tasks. So instead of the module last time was for deals, because it was calling this, in this case, the module is going to be task, and I'm just going to call this rule name task dependencies, because this can be, since you're doing it on tasks, like Tyler said, it automatically kind of knows where you're at. So you can create a whole bunch of different task dependencies using this thing, and it knows where to put these follow-up tasks. So again, if you remember last week's tutorial, when does this trigger? We're going to do it on create or edit. And then we're going to have 2 different parameters that are going to trigger this. And I think the tricky part around this is you have to trigger it off the task subject. So most of the time, it's really better to do these task dependencies based on a task that is fired off from a workflow. Because if someone's typing in the subject manually, odds are it's not necessarily going to match up very well. So you need to make sure that the subject is word for word, letter for letter, matches the subject of the task that you're actually using as the one that's going to fire off the next task. And in this case, I said the status is completed. Now, this could be anything. The status is pending. The status is needs input. So maybe you've got a task, and as soon as it gets to needs input, you need to fire off a task to someone to, hey, take a look at this and give me your input on it, kind of thing. So in this case, though, I'm saying I notified the research team, and what do I want to do once the research team is notified? Well, I want to go ahead and I want to create another task. And so when I create this other task, I want it to be 7 days after the original, after I've notified the research team, I want to check on the status of the research report. So this is real simple. It's basically, I notified the research team they needed to do this. Now I want to fire off a task 7 days later to let me know, to check on it and go, hey, if I haven't got it back yet, and maybe I've already got the research report back yet, but if not, I want to check on that research report. So it's dead simple. And the way it works in reality is, you've got the little checkbox that's next to all your open activities. You can actually just check that box to complete a task. You don't have to open it and mark it as completed. If you hit that little check that's next to all of your open activities, it'll mark it as completed. And as soon as you do that, it's going to go ahead and move it to a closed activities, and it will fire off a brand new task for you, which says check on the research report 7 days after that happened. So this was on the 17th, 7 days later, on the 23rd, it fired off this nice little check on the status of a research report. And that's how you can have all of these little task dependencies. These, by the way, are built into projects. If you're using Zoho projects, you've got, building task dependencies is part and parcel to what that does. Not so in the CRM though. So this is kind of just a really nice way to do that. And I think we get asked about this all the time. So hopefully that's helpful.
And you could do a lot with this too. So, for example, maybe you wanted to have like a standardized process for lead outreach, right? So maybe you're going to have one of your, business development reps place 3 different calls, right? Trying to get connected with a lead. And you can put additional branching into this, right? So maybe you had a call or a task disposition, right? Where if a call was connected, they could flag it that way. And then it might not fire off task number 2 for the second call, but maybe it'll fire off a task to convert that lead if you've connected with them, right? So you can kind of build in lots of different branching or dependencies directly into these workflows.
Yeah. And it's, which all the time is the goal of when you build these things is you don't want anything to fall through the cracks. And that just doesn't necessarily have to do with, customer follow-up and sales follow-up. I mean, it's internal process and operations follow-up. I mean, there's so much you can do. Anyway, small little thing, pretty powerful. Take a look. Hope you enjoy it. All right, Tyler, that is a wrap, my friend. Quick week.
Yeah, seems like this week really did fly by. Something about it just seems like I blinked twice, and now we're recording this on Friday.
And next week, we did mention it, but we have we've got our webinar, which is going to be on Zoho Analytics. It's our overview and best practices series that we're doing. This is going to be right up your wheelhouse. That's going to be next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. You can go to our website. There's a link on there to that. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at info@zenatta.com or just head over to zenatta.com and there's a contact us form there, and we'd be happy to chat with you.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. And you can also follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.